afternoon and welcome to Match of the Day as the football season reaches its climax. And unless you're a mathematical nut, to all intents and purposes, Liverpool are champions. But Manchester United and Watford, who provide our first game, are joint favourites to finish second.
Looking for Blissett, who's got ahead of McGrath for a moment and found Jobson.
And if either of those two fail, Aston Villa have the best chance of overtaking them. We see them against West Ham, themselves still chasing Europe.
He finds Swindlehurst, tries to get on the end of it, Swindlehurst does, and a fine save by Spink.
And a shock from Scotland, Dundee United, never yet champions, head the Scottish Premier Division as a result of goals like this.
Down and with it. Stop it!
Today's headlines. Terry Venables reveals what it will cost to take over Queen's Park Rangers. Robert Maxwell sticks to his guns over the Oxford-Reading merger, but the Reading fans are fighting back. Ozzy Ardiles fears the worst on his latest injury, and the international squads are again deprived of key players.
It would have taken a brave man to predict that Watford, in their first season in the First Division, would be ahead of Manchester United come April. But that's how it stands, and all credit to them. But there's still a week or two to go, and United's cup success has rekindled the appetite of supporters and players alike. Your commentator at Old Trafford, John Motson.
A big welcome for the FA Cup finalists and an anniversary for the player whose goal took them there. It's a year ago today since Norman Whiteside made his first league appearance as substitute at Brighton. The club United will meet at Wembley. And quite a season too for Watford's Luther Blissett. Over 30 goals in all club and international football, and memories of two here when Watford beat Manchester United in the League Cup 5 years ago. With him in attack, three 19-year-olds. Number 7, Richard Jobson, on the right in place of the suspended Nigel Callaghan. Number 9, John Barnes, and on the left, number 11, David Johnson, who starts a First Division match for the first time. With 5 men still injured, Manchester United keep the 12 which lost at Everton when Laurie Cunningham came on as substitute. And 2 men in the same team who've captained England this season. Ray Wilkins and Brian Robson, both in the squad for next Wednesday's match against Hungary. Referee this afternoon is Don Shaw from Sandbach. It's Watford's first ever league visit to Old Trafford. They've enjoyed 2 fine cup performances here. Luther Blissett on the ball. That one in the League Cup when he scored twice. And that's his shot. And supporters will also remember that Jeff Whelan's on loan, the keeper from Birmingham, that Watford played here in the FA Cup back in 68-69 and forced a draw. Nicely turned inside by Stapleton. The Watford battlers win possession again. That was forward by Jacket. And Moses gets a touch. Whiteside couldn't, so it was back by Sims. And it was Barnes who was caught by Grimes. Just gives us the chance to make the point that these two clubs have a very good disciplinary record this season. Ashley Grimes, the only player to be sent off from either of these two teams. That was for an incident at West Ham. But other than that, a clean sheet for United and a completely clean sheet for Watford in their first season in Division 1 when they've done so well. Bolton will take the free kick. Blissett up. And away by Wilkins. Oh, that's a good touch from Stapleton and indeed from Wilkins. And United move smoothly as far as Whiteside and then find that again Watford get a foot in. Stapleton again. That's another interesting looking pass. McGrath. Good effort. McGrath had the shot, but Frank Stapleton's contribution twice in that move once again underlined Ron Atkinson's point that he is the most complete centre-forward in British football. And Barnes puts Johnson away, and Duxbury caught out of position, and Johnson goes on and is eventually awarded a free kick for a foul by Moses. Brian Robson challenged that with the referee quite forcibly. So indeed does the other England captain of this season, Ray Wilkins. And Remy Moses is going to be booked, and that means almost certainly a suspension which will not affect the FA Cup final, because if that puts Remy Moses to 31 points, as it may well do, depending on an earlier booking at Everton being confirmed, he will start a two-match suspension 2 weeks today. He will get it over by the time the FA Cup final comes round. So in a sense that's a relief, I suppose, but they're contesting it, the booking, the United players. Free kick to Watford. Curled in for Blissett. And a corner is given. Or is it? The referee pointed towards the corner and has checked with the linesman, and it's a goal kick. But the reason for the Remy Moses booking there may have been the referee felt it was his second offence. Certainly not vicious, but he is a player at the moment living very much on a tightrope. Blissett. Oh, good ball, Barnes. Made the shooting chance. And who says Watford don't play with skill? Luther Blissett turned and ran at the defence, checked when he saw Barnes in a good position. He in turn checked to make the shooting position better, and was then too high. Good combination though. On by Stapleton. Jobson trying to turn Orbiston. He succeeded. Orbiston's gone down, apparently injured. This is Taylor into Jacket. It's left the right flank free for Watford with Jobson, but McGrath saw the danger. And his tackle has allowed Orbiston to regain his balance, although he appears to have taken a knock. Blissett coming forward. And Whelan saw there that it was 1 against 1, Whiteside and Bolton. And who knows, it could have put Whiteside through. That was a sensible kick by Gary Bailey's deputy. Forward by Jacket, there goes Barnes against McGrath. He's got the pace, and has Jobson got the finish? Whelans did well. Well, the star of the opening half hour here is undoubtedly Watford's John Barnes. He's gone across to take the corner, but he's giving Manchester United a lot of difficulty. The whistle's gone for a foul on the goalkeeper. Well, Barnes has twisted and turned on the right, in the centre, and found gaps in the Manchester United defence for others to exploit. Indeed, that one, as it was pulled back, came as far as Jobson, but the angle, to be fair to him, wasn't good enough for a shot. Grimes. This is Whiteside. Brian Robson trying to get into the match, but Kenny Jacket is tracking him very closely. That was his foul. Welsh international. And Manchester United are going to make their substitution. Arthur Albiston was hurt in a challenge with Richard Johnson. He goes off, and Laurie Cunningham, on loan from Real Madrid, makes his first league appearance at Old Trafford for Manchester United. He took a fitness test himself this morning, as a matter of fact, before he was named. Robson turns it in. And Ashley Grimes has gone to play left back. In place of the departed Albiston. Cunningham has taken up an outside left position. Whiteside. Oh, he's turned Sims. Right foot, well saved by Sherwood. Out to Stapleton. The turn against Sims by Whiteside. Further evidence of just how far he's come this season. There's Barnes. Looking for Blissett, who's got ahead of McGrath for a moment. And found Jobson! The best chance of the half coming in stoppage time. And it fell to Watford and to 19-year-old Richard Jobson. And on the bench, they must feel that should have gone in. Luther Blissett against Paul McGrath. There was only one winner in that movement. And Blissett played a very, very good ball, which Jobson got underneath when it seemed almost easier to score. But it's very simple to say that from up here. And on that note, the first half ends. And one of the interesting features was the two examples of centre-forward play. Frank Stapleton was Manchester United's best attacker, and Watford's John Barnes was always a threat at the other end. Well, all you Sunday morning footballers who saw that miss of Richard Jobson's might bear in mind that only a few months ago he was one of you. He was playing Sunday football in Burton when the season started, and then picked up with Burton Albion, and it was from there that Watford signed him. And despite that miss, there are some good things from him to come, I'm sure. So the second half starts with Grimes again slotting in at left back, and the news of Arthur Albiston: he has a groin strain and joins the United injury list, which already includes Bailey, Muren, Moran, Coppell and Macari. Although talking to the United physio Jim McGregor before the match, I get the impression only Coppell is a real doubt for the FA Cup final. So there are still Wembley places to be played for in the Manchester United camp. Robson wide to Cunningham, and it'll be important that Manchester United service him if they're going to get any joy at all down that side. Does seem to still be a bit of doubt about Laurie Cunningham's fitness. Whiteside trying to hold his opponent off. Moses and Robson and Moses, and still ricochets. Whiteside, corner, well turned round. Whiteside had the shot. Moses was involved in the build-up. And Wilkins will go across to take the corner. McQueen up with the keeper, and hooked back in by Laurie Cunningham. Well, you have to go back a long way for a league goal by Laurie Cunningham. Over 4 years, in fact. for when he last scored for West Brom in 1979, before leaving for Spain. But Gordon McQueen's presence confused Steve Sherwood, and when the ball dropped, Laurie Cunningham turned it into the net. So quite a start to his Old Trafford career for the player on loan from Real Madrid. And Manchester United have now got Whiteside in a good position, and also Moses, who's through. And Remy Moses, well stopped. Moses held off the challenge of Les Taylor, and Steve Sherwood came to meet him. Cunningham. Well, it took 3 tackles there to dispossess John Barnes. He's having a very good match. Here's Wilkins. And Whiteside on the chest, and if that had been played to either Stapleton or Cunningham, United were away. Instead it's offside against Barnes on the far side. Wouldn't have mattered, but the referee elected to play the advantage. Here's Wilkins. Moses. Stapleton. And Wilkins has made a forward run now, and so too has Stapleton. Beautifully found, and fouled by Sims. Penalty. Penalty to Manchester United. What a great ball by Remy Moses from the middle of the field. Superb pass. Stapleton was through. Sims caught him. Penalty. Now then, there's been lots of debate in the United camp about penalty takers, because Steve Coppell and Arnold Muren aren't playing, and Ashley Grimes, although Stapleton's got the ball, I fancy Ashley Grimes to take it, because that was the decision before last week's semi-final. And he makes it 2-0 with his left foot. So 63 minutes gone, and Manchester United increase their lead. It's interesting, that penalty, because I was chatting to Ashley Grimes before the match, and he was reminding me that when he was last the penalty taker, he missed one in a game we covered against Leeds at that end a few years ago. But although Sherwood guessed right, the power with the left foot there sent the ball in the corner. 2-0 to United then. Whiteside, Cunningham is to his left. The crowd want to see some magic from Laurie Cunningham. Had that ball rebounded off the body of Steve Sherwood, Frank Stapleton was waiting. Blissett will get the free kick against McGrath. Blissett heads it down for Les Taylor, and it was a good save, because I think the view of the goalkeeper, Whelans, may have been obstructed by either Barnes or McGrath. And that long kick of Jeff Whelans, the prevailing tactic when there are just 2 against 2 up the field. He's used that to good effect. And now Watford will take off David Johnson, and they will replace him with 17-year-old Worrell Sterling, who gets his first taste of league football, but not his first match at Old Trafford. because Sterling played in the FA Youth Cup final here last season. Manchester United are enjoying the best home league crowds for the 11th consecutive season in English football. There are over 43,000 here today. It's beginning to look like 3 fairly comfortable points in the end for Manchester United, providing they don't make any silly slips. And that's one. And it could have been punished. McQueen, surely. Sterling. Well, dear me. Silly slips is an understatement. Bless it. And he's turned away from Wilkins and McGrath, and Manchester United got themselves into a right mess. The goalkeeper came and got terribly mixed up with his defenders, and then Gordon McQueen failed to make what looked like an elementary clearance. Well, Sterling was nearly in for Watford. Les Taylor with the corner then. And the touch on that was by Barnes. Here's Sterling. Faced by 2. He worked well to earn the corner. Watford do discover a tremendous amount of good local talent. And as their corner count mounts, Barnes will take. In fact, just looking at that, Watford have now had 12 corners to Manchester United's 5, and yet find themselves 2 goals behind. The amount of corners and throw-ins they get reflects the way they play, but then again, to make them count properly, you've got to score from them. And today, so far, they've failed to do so. Whereas, ironically, Manchester United's first goal came from a corner. McQueen waiting for the bounce. Watford managing to get forward to the last. Well encouraged by their supporters, who've had so much pleasure this season. And off McQueen's head at the end, and that looks as though it may well be a penalty against Gordon McQueen, who jumped there with Steve Sims and presumably used the arm in the referee's opinion as he challenged. And a penalty to Watford right at the end of the match, giving Luther Blissett the chance to at least achieve a consolation. Oh, well saved by Jeff Whelans, who caps a fine display as Gary Bailey's deputy. He read which way Blissett was going to send that, got down to his left and pounced. And that was the last action of an eventful afternoon, when Watford may well reflect on missed chances like that one. But Manchester United's experience was telling after a first half in which Watford had taken the game to them. 2 second-half goals, the first by Laurie Cunningham, and the second from the penalty spot by Ashley Grimes. And those 2 players switched roles when Orbiston went off. Grimes went to left-back, Cunningham came on as sub, they were the scorers, and Manchester United take 3 points.
And that win puts United a point behind Watford with 2 games in hand, but at some cost, as we'll learn later. But meantime, let's join John Motson as he reflects on Watford's highly successful season with their manager, Graham Taylor.
Well, you've been to all the big stadiums now, Graham, in your first season in the First Division. How would you reflect, not just on today's game, but on your season in particular?
Well, it's been a truly magnificent season, John. I mean, it isn't over yet. We've still got the 4 games, and we've still got to find some points to qualify for Europe, to make certain of it. But whatever happens, even if we weren't to find those points, I would think it's been a first-class season. Tremendous achievement by the players.
Now, we don't want to debate yet again Watford's style of play, but I must ask you, do you visualise changing it for next year, or will you stick to the same pattern?
I remember a year ago, John, after we got promotion by beating Leicester, you asked a similar sort of question. And the thing is, you see, the style has been named by so-called experts. I mean, quite honestly, we've just been labelled. So people come already looking for certain things, and they're missing so many other things. And I don't see it as my job to sort of tell journalists or commentators, for that matter, about something that they've already labelled. And I think we've got used to that now. We're used to labels sticking, and people are just saying that. I mean, the style and the so-called style is something that has been given to us by other people.
In fairness, I mean, one can make a positive point and say that you've played with 4 out-and-out forwards and 2 men very wide on the wings and 2 down the centre, who in this match, Blissett and Barnes, gave them some difficulties. I mean, I'm just wondering if, in terms of knowing that teams will be waiting for you even more so next year, whether you in the summer, being the thinker that you are, will devise a change in the system.
Well, we'll try to play with 6 forwards, perhaps, then. It's nice of you to mention that, actually, that we have come into the First Division and we have played with 2 wingers. And we've tried to do that, and we've scored, I think, almost 70 goals now in the league, and there's only Liverpool scored more goals than us. I mean, one could say, but I don't see really any reason to defend what we've done this season. I mean, it's quite incredible when you think of some of the people, and one journalist in particular, who's taken upon himself to criticise us.
Just changing the topic completely, last week on BBC television, you were interviewed at the start of the London Marathon, and I know you've had lots of calls from our viewers, and we've had a few, because you weren't seen after that. Will you please confirm that you did finish and give me a time?
Yes, I will confirm, actually. Terry Neal asked Bob Wilson, didn't he, if he'd seen me. Well, of course, Terry's got a few problems with his eyes at the moment. It's the dust from my heels. I finished in 3 hours, 20 minutes.
You finished in 3:20?
Yes, and I think Neil crawled in at something like 3:35.
Have you still got to play Arsenal again?
Yeah, next week.
Oh.
Terrible thing, isn't it?
I think we'll end the interview there, Graham.
We'll have a race instead.
Marathon man Graham Taylor deservedly enjoying the fruits of a fine season. But he won't need me to tell him, nor Swansea's John Toshak, incidentally, that it's the 2nd season in the First Division can be the most testing. But so far, so good for Watford, and Manchester United's season could well fulfil their own high expectations. And the teams involved in our 2nd game, West Ham and Aston Villa, would have had their own expectations in August, at least to win a place in Europe. But both are still in the hunt, but West Ham have the most ground to make up. Your commentator at Upton Park is Alan Parry.
The supporters have chosen Alvin Martin as West Ham's Player of the Year, and who better to make the presentation than Trevor Brooking. Martin returns today after injury, and there's also good news of Brooking. Having missed most of the season through injury, Brooking is now playing regular reserve team football and has said that he wants to play on next season, despite earlier reports that he was ready to retire. Well, Martin and centre-forward David Swindlehurst both came through fitness tests without any reaction, so with the exception of Brooking, West Ham are able to field their strongest lineup. Francois van der Elst reverts from attack to midfield, and Scotsman Neil Orr is substitute in case Martin's knee injury bothers him again. Aston Villa are forced to make a late change. Skipper Dennis Mortimer is injured, and his place in midfield goes to 18-years-old Ray Walker, a Geordie who makes his first team debut. With Des Bremner still injured, Alan Kirbishley continues at number 7 on the ground where he began his league career. And a familiar face, today's referee, Clive Thomas. Villa start the game in 3rd position in the table, with a place in Europe very much within their sights. West Ham are currently 10th, but they haven't given up hope of chasing a European place themselves. Villa playing in the white shirts today and attacking from right to left. Cowan's forward, and Shaw showing good pace, but Martin covering well. North's header. Pike to Goddard. Stewart switching play. Devonshire. Oh, a neat return ball. Lampard. And here's Swindlehurst. Evans slipped. Good interception, but it comes loose. Surely. No! Dickens couldn't turn it back. Far enough. Astonishing incident, really, with Aston Villa twice having the opportunity to get the ball clear. They failed. First Goddard, and then Dickens from that very difficult angle, failing to punish Aston Villa. Stewart. Urged by the crowd to go on. Pike. Devonshire takes over. Beautiful ball. Goddard. Bonds getting forward, but not quickly enough. Devonshire again. And still, and it took a blatant piece of obstruction by Tony Morley, who I'm sure from that expression would disagree with me, to stop Alan Devonshire, who's been in fine form of late. And Bobby Robson has noted that fact, even though Devonshire, by his own admission, was disappointing in England's last game. It's a good header away. With still battling in there. In the end, Evans got it clear. It comes to Pike. And it was strange that it was two forward players who helped Aston Villa out of that mess. And then a fullback, Gibson, who finally clears it. Not much cohesion at the back being shown by Aston Villa in these early stages. Peter With it was making the vital clearance then. It's aimed at Peter With. Pike. It's a bit frenetic in midfield. Really needs someone to calm it down. Swindlehurst doing very well. And finding Van der Elst. Looking for support. Bonds forward. Stewart. Now Morley's got a difficult decision to make here. And is robbed by Stewart before he could make it. Dickens. Van der Elst now. On for Bonds. Nobody wanting to take on the responsibility of a shot. Devonshire. Lampard arriving in support. And here he is. Came off the defender and Walker got it clear. They're committed a lot of men forward here, West Ham. So if Villa can break quickly, there could be something on. Morley showed the ball to Stewart. But Cowans was alive to what was happening. With Morley. Well, strangely enough, Tony Morley, who looked as though he had ruined that move, ended up with the shot at the end of it. Swindlehurst climbing well. Williams. Lampard opting for the safety first. With. Cowans dwelling a little bit too long on the ball. Van der Elst robbed him. Gary Shaw, Bonds right behind him. Forward by Gibson. Stewart heads it back. Pike. And Stewart swinging it for Swindlehurst in the box. Eventually he gets it. Very near to the corner flag. Nice control. And it came off Gibson. And that's a corner. Fine piece of play by David Swindlehurst. Got a very nice touch on the ball for a big number 9. West Ham's first corner of the game then. Can Swindlehurst round it off? I wonder. It's aimed at Bonds. Devonshire gets it. And finds Goddard. Neat play. Billy Bonds. Dickens. Spectacular. Swindlehurst. Well, he got a shot in. Carried no real weight. He did well to have any kind of strike towards goal then. With header, it was a good one. Cool, composed play by Alvin Martin, and a good ball too. Intercepted. Oh, that was dangerous. And you have to be brave when Peter With is bearing down on you. Pike with the back pass, placing Phil Parkes in a moment of danger, but he was decisive. Gibson clear. Back it comes. Pike and Van der Elst combining well. And sloppy, but in the end, effective clearance by McNaught. Pike causing the danger. Goddard being shadowed as he moves towards the goal line. Bonds and Swindlehurst waiting for the high cross if it comes. And it was neither of those things. Pike gets it back. Martin lining up a shot. Well, the goalkeeper was always going to be behind it, but from that distance and with so many players blocking the goalkeeper's vision, it was a worthwhile effort by Martin. Who gets back to head clear at the other end. Devonshire forward. Evans header. Pike now. Pike. Dickens. And now Morley for Aston Villa. With Shaw. Made it rather easy for Bonds. Pike. Lampard with a lot of space to move forward. With goes with him. And Devonshire. Always a buzz of anticipation when he's on the ball. He finds Swindlehurst. Tries to get on the end of it. Swindlehurst does. And a fine save by Spink. Anguish on the face of Swindlehurst. But that really was a very good save. Devonshire looking so beautiful as he glided forward, linking with Swindlehurst, and the shot producing a fine save. Devonshire's kick, Swindlehurst's header. Bonds nearly got on the end of it, and the referee has given a foul by Bonds on Alan Evans. Devonshire, having an outstanding half here, has looked dangerous really every time he's been in possession. John Lyle leaning forward anxiously. Gary Shaw kept it in. Williams gave it away to Martin. Back from Evans. Devonshire to Lampard. Under pressure from Shaw. Gibson, good header that, with chasing. Held off Martin well and plays it back to Gibson. What a good effort and what a fine save. The best move of the game. Gibson initiating it, with carrying it on. Gibson going on to shoot, and a fine save by Phil Parkes. Well, that's brought the crowd to life, even though it was a near miss by Villa. Now, who got the header then? Parkes with a marvellous save. I think it was with both he and McNaught came in between the defenders, and Parkes, for the second time in a matter of seconds, getting down well and making a good save. Well, It was a half that started rather slowly, but came dramatically to life in the dying minutes. And Phil Parkes with two marvellous saves in a matter of seconds, keeping West Ham with a clean sheet at half-time. Aston Villa perhaps had conceded a lot of ground to West Ham before that, but really, with Devonshire always looking dangerous, the half-time score is West Ham United 0, Aston Villa 0, and a prospect of goals to come, I think, in the second half. Well, West Ham have been forced into a substitution during the half-time interval. Neil Orr has come on for the injured Frank Lampard. So West Ham get the second half underway. They haven't got a very good record, incidentally, against Villa here in recent seasons. Aston Villa unbeaten on their last 4 visits to Upton Park in the First Division. And curiously enough, 3 of those games ended in 2-all draws. Evans' clearance. Williams for Aston Villa. Goddard chased well. And Devonshire in possession. Goddard to his left. Dickens to his right. Laid on for Van der Elst. Good save. But Van der Elst perhaps should have done better. A good challenge by Morley. 3 forward here for Villa. This is Kirbishley. And now With. Kirbishley couldn't control it. Bonds bringing it clear. Here's Goddard. A good ball for Bonds. Looking for support. Only Swindlehurst up with him. Now Goddard. Bonds still going forward, but the cross was blocked. I must say, a few moments ago, West Ham might have had a goal. It was a lovely build-up. Dickens playing the ball through to Van der Elst, who shot from close range, but straight at the keeper. And here's Devonshire. That was difficult because it reared up from that sanded pitch, or sanded part of the pitch, right in front of Nigel Spink, who did well to hold on to it. Shaw chasing here with Bonds. Tremendous kick it was. And Shaw gets on the end of it. And Parkes doing well, bravely going down at the feet of Gary Shaw. And the danger stemmed from an enormous kick by Nigel Spink, almost the whole length of the pitch. Good goalkeeping at the other end by Parkes to deny Shaw and With. Devonshire. Dickens drifting into space. Good looking cross, Goddard flicks it on, what a fine save, but Swindlehurst bundles it home. And there was a touch of Trevor Brooking about that cross from Dickens. How well he did from that position. Goddard with a little flick on. It looked as though Spink had kept it out, but Swindlehurst bundled it home for his second goal since becoming a West Ham player. West Ham United 1, Aston Villa 0 in the 59th minute. And there can be no finer tribute to a man who's been likened to Trevor Brooking than to say Brooking himself, who's in the crowd, of course, today, would have been proud of that cross. It was a very difficult angle. Stewart's kick finds Goddard. And he wins the corner off Evans. Assisted well then, Paul Goddard, who's not having much joy in front of goal these days. Scored only twice in his last 24 games. Martin getting up. Well, they would have cheered him down the Mile End Road if that one had gone in. Billy Bonds, the ever-popular captain, with an overhead kick and a smile, even though it not only went over, it went wide. Walker. Did well. Shaw. Now then, on his left is Morley. Well, no real sting behind the shot. Walker. Oh, straight to Pike. He's looking for help down the left, but he's all alone at the moment. He'll do well to keep possession here and earns the throw off Cowans. Dickens, another tight angle. And that, I think, is a corner. Corner it is, Devonshire will take. Short to Dickens, back it goes. Well, Devonshire. The shot by Bonds and turned in. Billy Bonds claiming it. Swindlehurst tried to just make sure that Bonds gets the goal. And inevitably, it was Alan Devonshire who played a vital part in the build-up. He rode the first tackle, turned it in neatly. Billy Bonds turned and shot. Swindlehurst would have made sure anyway, but in it goes. It's Billy Bonds' third goal of the season, and West Ham lead by 2-0. 78 minutes gone. So, a reversal of the form book. Although when you examine Aston Villa's away record, they've lost 12 times away from home this season. It's not really all that surprising that they find themselves 2 goals adrift, with having shown no real prospects of putting that situation right. Bonds enjoying the joke and certainly enjoying the goal. With plenty of time on the ball, but still manages to give it away. Williams being fouled by Goddard. And Nort with his onside here, although West Ham's players were appealing for offside. Tackle by Peter Whiff, and he clashes with Billy Bonds, and that's good refereeing, isn't it, by Clive Thomas? Because a great moment, Billy Bonds and Peter Whiff, and sensible refereeing by Clive Thomas, who instead of letting the fight ensue, got between them good-humouredly, but will now administer, I'm sure, a rather sterner word. It all ends in smiles and handshakes, to the relief of Peter Whiff, who's had rather too many bookings this season for it to have been a joke if his name had gone into Mr. Thomas's book. Williams forward, straight to Ortho, with challenging, and he did well. Walker. Here's Kirbishley. Looks like being a disappointing return for him. Indeed it is. That's the final whistle. David Swindlehurst getting the first goal, and Billy Bonds getting the second. But Devonshire, and how timely it was, with the England international against Hungary coming up next week, turned in a superb all-round performance. West Ham deserving their win, and if they can string together some more results like this, a place in Europe next season, not out of the question. They won 2-0, and even though they've been beaten today, Aston Villa should also clinch a place in Europe next season, but they were disappointing here at Upton Park.
Well, outstanding goalkeeping at both ends, a feature of that match. But at the end of the day, Villa would have perhaps admitted West Ham just deserved the points. Well, the moment the crowd seemed to enjoy most occurred when Peter Whiff, going for the ball, I thought, tripped Billy Bonds. And it really was a chance to appreciate a workman on a Saturday afternoon out and the job he has to do. He takes that ball down, Peter, brilliantly with his chest. He's shoved around a little there, but takes all that willingly and then tries to lay the ball off. But he sees it doesn't go to his own side. So here's the attempt to get it back. And he's like a pig in the middle now. And I think he's still going for the ball there, but he does leave his feet there when Billy Bonds, by sleight of foot, beats him. Clive Thomas, on the spot there, deals with it beautifully. But it's like a reminder of the past. When those sort of incidents happened, it was just a foul. The players saw the funny side of the thing. Sportsmanlike behaviour was still there, and the fun was in the game. Well, perhaps it's timely to point out that contrary to the prevailing propaganda, the policy of Match of the Day has been, whenever remotely possible, to look for the good things in the games we cover, and our regular viewers, I'm sure, will know that to be true.
The European Championship round-up shortly, but first the follow-up to yesterday's shock news that Queen's Park Rangers' Terry Venables is set to become the first manager to own a Football League club. Venables had hardly begun to celebrate Rangers' promotion to the First Division after beating Leeds when Jim Gregory announced he was standing down as chairman, had decided to sell the club, and with the first option going to Terry Venables if he could find a consortium capable of raising the money. Well, today Terry threw more light on that last point when he told me everyone is talking about £3 million for me to buy the controlling interest in Rangers, but the figure is £1 million. It's all very exciting and I need to arrange some meetings immediately. Fascinating, isn't it? Clearly Jim Gregory, remembering 5 years ago when the Rangers fans were after his blood, is wisely seeking a quieter life. He's a hero today, but he knows the tide could easily turn again. And Terry Venables' projected consortium would not be the first to face the future, with their players and the league fixtures being the only assets. And Jim Gregory would not be the first chairman to sell his holding for a profit or loss, but many chairmen and directors in the league still look upon owning shares as an amateur privilege, and they continue to change hands at the price at which they were bought. Well, one chairman currently accused of madness by a section of supporters is Robert Maxwell of Oxford, but he remains unmoved by protests against the proposed merger of Oxford United and Reading, the latest of which involved a sit-in on the Oxford pitch before yesterday's game with Wigan. Mr. Maxwell's response: the genuine fan will come to terms with it when he sees the football is better, the crowds larger, the level at which we play different, and they know there is no alternative. Well, for Oxford there may be no alternative, but for the people of Reading it seems there now definitely is, because a few moments ago Roger Smee, the former Reading player who is coordinating the fight to save the club, told me anything Mr. Maxwell is talking about in the future planning of Oxford can be done locally in Reading. The whole town, including the local council, is now galvanised to the cause of keeping their club alive. Well, as you know, the first stage of legal action has already taken place, and we understand there are to be further steps taken in the next few days. Now European Championship news, and yet another sorry tale of injuries and withdrawals for Wednesday's games. England, who meet Hungary at Wembley, have lost Russell Osman, Tony Woodcock, and perhaps the biggest blow of all, skipper Brian Robson, who was troubled with a groin strain throughout Manchester United's victory against Watford. But did his own determination to stay on contribute to his withdrawal from the England squad?
No, I think if I had to, if I'd had to come off, I probably would have missed the international anyway. Really, it was a little bit of a gamble on myself, but I wanted to get through this 90 minutes, hope that the ground was okay, so then I could play in the international Wednesday, because it was a game I didn't want to miss. But I've had the wrong reaction from the groin, and I don't want to play for England if I'm not 100% fit.
That sensible approach must also apply to Liverpool's Ian Rush, who sees a specialist in the morning before deciding whether his groin trouble will prevent him from playing for Wales in the match at Wrexham against Bulgaria. Wales, remember, in a strong position in Group 4, on top and with a game in hand over Norway, and also Yugoslavia, who lost 4-0 to France in a friendly yesterday. Also in action yesterday were West Germany. Remember, they're in the same group as Northern Ireland, who must face Albania in Belfast on Wednesday without Norman Whiteside, also injured yesterday, playing for United. Manager Billy Bingham has called up Tom Finney of Cambridge, and he was naturally interested in the form of the West Germans. After taking the lead against Turkey with a Rummenigge penalty, the Germans then had a second goal from the great Karl-Heinz disallowed for offside. A harsh decision, to say the least, but one, it seems, accepted gracefully enough by the West German players. It hardly mattered, because just a few moments later in the 35th minute, Wolfgang Dremmler burst forward to score a fine individual goal. That gave West Germany a 2-0 half-time lead, and their superiority was confirmed 19 minutes from the end when Rummenigge first found Rudi Fuller on the left and then sneaked in at the far post to meet the cross and head home for his second of the match. The final score, Turkey 0, West Germany 3. And that win puts West Germany a point behind Northern Ireland in Group 6 and 2 behind Austria, who the Germans meet in Vienna on Wednesday. That same day in Group 7, the Republic of Ireland meets Spain in Zaragoza, and the Irish have lost 2 key men, the battle-scarred Kevin Moran of Manchester United and Michael Robinson of Brighton. Liam Brady already missing, remember, he's suspended. Still on the injury front, Ozzy Ardiles is facing a worrying few hours. The Spurs Argentine international has an X-ray tomorrow on the left leg, which he broke a month or 2 ago, and one which yesterday in a reserve game received a kick on the very point of that old injury. Spurs physio Mike Varney told me Ozzy was in some pain and that he personally feared the worst, another stress fracture. Now action from the Scottish Premier Division, which has turned into a very close 3-horse race. And while Aberdeen were beating Celtic 1-0 at Pittodrie, the other club in contention, Dundee United, one who've never been champions, moved into pole position with a comfortable home win against Kilmarnock. Archie McPherson, your commentator.
Bannon to take this. Oh, Stark, and that's it. Derek Stark, 1-0. And you can see a mile away that was very poor marking indeed. I mean, the Kilmarnock defence, really at 6s and 7s. Stark had an opportunity, but as the ball bounced awkwardly, so there was Stark high into the net. Dodds, Billy Kirkwood got into a clutter of players. 20 minutes gone. Still only 1 goal in it. Ralph Milne. Holt. Yes! Beautifully shot. Sweetly conceived and finished. 20 minutes gone. And that was unselfishly touched through there to Holt. Not at all an easy position. But didn't he do well? Bannon gets a corner. With about 12 minutes of the first half remaining, and there are some of his admirers in the background who are hoping they will explode into action from this one. They do. Derek Stark's second goal. 3-0 for United. Where oh where, with the defenders to mark the man running in. Bannon with it. Sturrock.
What an exciting end to the season in prospect for Scotland, which brings us to the end of the programme. And the good news is that yesterday 452,000 people watched Football League games, the highest since New Year's Day. And last week John Porritt of Horsham sent in a Daily Express from 1935, which prompted us to spend a few hours comparing the past with the present. Sunderland, top of the league, like Brentford yesterday, scored 7, but also Grimsby and West Brom scored 6 each. Goals average 5 a game as against below 3 currently, but the crowds were unexceptional. Liverpool had 25,000, Stoke City 18,000 and West Brom 15,000. The highest was at Manchester City, 35,000. In other divisions, Queen's Park Rangers, Aldershot and Millwall had only 3,000 each. And Leicester City, leading the second division, had 10,000, probably less than this season's average. And making allowance for Arsenal and West Ham being fogged off, the total would have been just less than yesterday. And perhaps that puts today's scene into perspective and raises hopes in the current gloom. And if Terry Venables is going to put his money into Queen's Park Rangers, things must be looking up. Good afternoon.